All right, so usually I just sort of talk about my intro to the video, but I thought I should write it today because it's actually really important to understand what we're going to cover on something called the performance elements, okay? And there are two of them, but really there's three of them, but anyway, we'll get to that in a minute. So what are the performance elements? So if you think about it, the last few videos we've been doing, we've looked at the stages of skill acquisition, we've looked at components of fitness, okay? We've looked at how athletes are built, how they sort of train to get to that autonomous level, all right? And logically by now, you know that someone who is in the cognitive stage of a skill is going to be much poorer than someone who is in the autonomous stage of a skill, okay? You put those two people against each other, 999 times out of 1,000, this person, the autonomous person, is going to smash the cognitive person, okay? Most times. But what happens when we look at autonomous skill people versus autonomous skill people, all right? So professional athletes, all right? The weekend sport you watch, the Olympics, that type of stuff. Those guys aren't just your regular Joes off the street that you pull in and say, hey, do this thing and try and win $1,000, all right? The world isn't actually like YouTube. So at the elite and professional level, most athletes that you watch, that you're familiar with, have similar skill sets. They have very similar components of fitness. So one might have an excellent agility score and someone else on the opposite team in the same position probably has the same agility score, all right? And they are all generally autonomous performers, all right? So therefore, if they're all like at this elite level and they're all amazing, what makes the difference? Well, it is therefore the performance elements that we're going to cover in this video that influence the winning and the besting of opponents. So let's go. Okay, so the first performance element is decision making, okay? So decision making is the ability for athletes to make choices on the fly, all right? i.e., making choices during their performance, not something that you predetermine in advance, okay? You are in the moment, you are the athlete, you are performing, and you make a decision, okay? That decision can make the difference between success or failure, and it can go either way, all right? Decision making does not always lead to success. Sometimes it does have negative outcomes, all right? It can be a negative risk or a positive risk. So for example, I've got two here. A halfback decides to pass a short ball, right, to someone running on the inside instead of a cutout pass to the wing. Now, passing that short ball may lead to a forward or a prop running through with that ball and then breaking through the line, scoring a try potentially. Alternatively, he may pass the short ball and the prop may get tackled and nothing happens from it, okay? Conversely, by not making the cutout pass to the wing, we've eliminated the wing from the play, but if he'd gone with the cutout pass to the wing, maybe the winger would have scored. Who knows? We don't know, all right? This is the thing about decision making, okay? So when we look at, before when I was trying to define what the performance elements are, it's these type of decisions which can lead to success or failure. And you never really know. You can't, go into the locker room afterwards and be like, oh, I should have passed that cutout pass to the wing. Like, you never know. That may have just ended up just as bad as the short ball, okay? You can't blame athletes for that. Unless it's a terrible decision, which, I'm sure as spectators of sports, you've all yelled at the TV a few times in your lives and be like, what are you doing? That's a terrible decision. I know I have. Anyway, moving on. A basketballer chooses a three-point shot over a layup. Layup, pretty much guaranteed 2 points, all right? But in the moment, the basketballer had a little bit of free time, thought that he could land the three-pointer, and he shoots. Now, we don't know the outcome of that, all right? Maybe it went in. Great decision. Well done. Basketball is A+. Maybe he shot the three-point shot and he missed, and then the opposition got the ball and returned it back. And then the coach would be all upset because, oh, you should have taken the layup. The layup was an easy 2 instead of the 3. But I bet you if you got the three-pointer in, the coach would be like, yeah, you're a legend. You can't, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. But anyway, that's decision making. Okay, so our next one is 2 together, but like I said, we're going to split them up because that makes it sort of easy to understand and easier for you to then be able to apply it in your answers. So we've got strategic and tactical development, okay? So strategy, we're going to talk about them separate. Strategy. Strategy is a certain line or direction of performance or play aimed at achieving a particular goal And that goal is usually to exploit opposition weaknesses. So when you're in your training in the middle of the week, let's say you're playing on the weekend, in the middle of the weekend, you know you're up against XYZ team, okay? The coach should hopefully have some information about that team, have some video performance that we can look at, analyze, etc. We come up with strategies for that, all right? What are the strategies that we can implement for our game this weekend to exploit our opposition's weaknesses and therefore hopefully making us succeed, all right? So for example, a boxer. A boxer knows that his opponent has less stamina, so plans to make the match last longer to capitalize on the opponent's fatigue in the final rounds, all right? So let's say I'm a boxer, I'm facing against someone else. The guy I'm facing has, superior power to me. Maybe he's got longer reach than me. However, he's like, a one punch man, all right? After about 5 or 6 rounds, he's gonna start tiring. And I know if a boxing match goes for 15 rounds, I know that in the 7th, 8th, 9th round, he's going to be very tired. He's going to be lacking power with his punches, and that would be my chance to shine. So my strategy going into that match is I need to just last. I need to last 8, 9, 10 rounds, and then I've got 5 rounds up the belt, and hopefully I've reserved a lot of my energy that I can just, knock him out. So that's a strategy. I'm going to rub it off and put tactic up, and then when you put the strategy with the tactic, it'll make sense. Okay, so tactics. What are tactics? Well, tactics are actions that athletes implement to make the strategy happen. So in the example before, we were talking about a boxer. The strategy in the boxing was that I know he's a far superior, bigger, taller, faster, stronger kind of person than I am, but I know he gets tired quickly. So the strategy is going to tire him out so that I can then knock him out. The tactic that I implement as the boxer is this. A boxer will focus on blocking, evading, and body shots only in the first 7 to 8 rounds. That will reserve my energy and it will also tire them out, because if they're swinging the whole time, hopefully swinging and missing, or swinging and just connecting with my block, which is not too tiring for me, but also connecting body shots, which exhausts a bit of stamina and energy from them, then eventually we'll get to the end of the 8th round, he'll be buggered, I'll be fresh, and then I'll come out 9th round and bam, bam, winner, chicken dinner. So that's a tactic, and you can apply this in every type of sport, okay? Let's just spitball one off the top of my head. Strategy for, let's pick a sport. For soccer, okay? By analysing footage, we know that the opposition goalkeeper is weak on their right side, okay? So the strategy is going to be to try and take shots mainly to the right of his body. The tactic that we implement to make that happen is that when we're moving the ball up the field, we'll move it up the right side of the field, and then as we get towards the goal line, we'll cut it across the field to our left wing, left striker, and then they can take a shot at the goalie's right side. All right, so we have a strategy of aiming at the right side, and we have the tactic of moving the ball in a particular way so that we can shoot at the right side. So that's strategies and tactics. All right, so how do we actually develop our performance elements? Okay, it's not something you can just go to the gym and do 5 sets of 10 of. All right, doesn't work that way. Well, we develop our performance elements by making game-like situations. Okay, I probably should have wrote that up. I always do that. I'm always like, this really important thing, and then I don't actually write the important thing. Okay, so game-like situations, such as small-sided games, all right? So we might do like a 5v5 soccer on a smaller field, not too small, but not too big either, all right? So that forces the players to use each other more, they get more ball time, then they can start to implement some decisions and tactics to make strategies happen. We could do some modified games, all right? So such as no goalie soccer, okay? So neither side has a goalie, okay? They have to therefore work better as a team and use their footwork and their positioning in such a way to defend the goal as opposed to a goalie being there to back them up, all right? Or we do advantage situations such as 3-on-2 or 4-on-3, okay? And most sports will have some sort of variant of that, okay? If you have 3 attackers and 2 defenders, the attackers should win every time, should. if they make the right decisions. Okay, these are all the types of things you can write about in your answers. So then as summary, what we would do is we use video footage, which is a form of delayed feedback, which I think we'll get to that soon, to analyze weaknesses in our opponents. We then create strategies off that analysis. Then we implement tactics and decision making to implement the strategies and therefore win. Because the whole goal of sport is not to have fun, it is to win. But don't tell my daughters I said that, because for them it's all about having fun. And that's all that's important. Anyway, that was the performance elements, and that's the end of this video. Thank you. Bye.